What is this? Why does this video have no audio?
Decision. An amazing decision, one that we're very happy about. This morning, the Supreme Court has delivered a monumental victory for the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law in striking down the excessive use of nationwide injunctions to interfere with the normal functioning of the executive branch. The Supreme Court has stopped the presidency itself. That's what they've done. And really, it's been an amazing period of time this last hour. There are people elated all over the country. I've seen such happiness and spirit. Sometimes you don't see that, but this case is very important. I was elected on a historic mandate, but in recent months we've seen a handful of radical left judges effectively try to overrule the rightful powers of the president to stop the American people.
Nationwide injunctions have been a seminal tool for the Federalist Society to legislate the conservative agenda for decades because they know the Republican cannot maintain popularity indefinitely. The fact that they are willing to do away with this power signals they are moving into a new phase of the master plan in which they are beyond worrying about insurances against electoral uncertainty. That is why I'm saying this is a terrifying decision. You only make a decision like this if you don't foresee yourself losing the grip of power at the federal level ever. Or even if you, in the off chance, lose that grip of power at the federal level, you know you have 100% confidence that your opposition is not actually going to use this to their advantage in the same way that you have to advance your desires, to advance your legislative agenda by executive mandate. That's why I think it's like a strange decision, because injunctions have been utilized by the Republicans in perpetuity as well when Democrats are in charge. You see what I'm saying?
People from getting the policies that they voted for in record numbers.
That's a clown take. This is great. It prevents the courts who have no business in national decisions from interfering. Seems like something like that. Yeah, this makes no sense to me. Lower courts were out of hand with this. I mean, they're not. This ain't family court, brother. Like, this is. You're talking about federal courts. Like, what purpose do they serve? Also, the executive order is fucking completely out of hand. What are you talking about? The executive order revoking birthright citizenship is transparently unconstitutional. It is blatantly unconstitutional. They know it's unconstitutional, which is precisely why they didn't even try to fight it on the grounds of constitutionality, whether or not like this executive order is even remotely constitutional or not, because even the most ideologically captive Supreme Court would strike this down, which is why the angle of attack was on lower courts and their capacity to issue injunctions on executive orders that impact the entire nation. That's it. Zoomers really having their futures absolutely fried and further cooked in front of their eyes daily. That's a sidecar issue. I was talking about the courts themselves and their power range. To me, the power regular Fed courts had to stop things from passing was too high. I mean, I'm going to repeat this once again. You are talking like a man. You are talking like a man who personally believes that there will come a day when there will be a progressive party in charge that will take advantage of the additional power that they have at the executive office. Okay? You're talking like a guy who thinks there are, one, going to be elections in the future, which there might be, and there might not be, I don't know. And also that once the party wins those elections, they will also earnestly utilize this new unlimited power to their advantage to improve people's lives. And I don't think that's happening.
It was a grave threat to democracy, frankly, and instead of merely ruling on the immediate cases before them, these judges have attempted to dictate the law for the entire nation. In practice, this meant that if any one of the nearly 700 federal judges disagreed with the policy of a duly elected president of the United States, he or she could block that policy from going into effect or at least delay it for many years, tie it up in the court system.
I guess in a way, doesn't this also kind of give more power and importance to the Supreme Court as well, turning it into the only court that can make impactful decisions at the federal level? And it's also obviously notoriously much slower than a number of different lower courts that you could go to issue injunctions. And it's also completely ideologically captured by this president. And considering the demographic makeup of the court, it seemingly will maintain that power and maintain that slant for quite a while. I feel like it's very cooked overall.
This was a colossal abuse of power which never occurred in American history
folks,
prior to recent decades.
Not good. Don't like
and
it.
We've been hit with more nationwide injunctions than were issued in the entire 20th century together. Think of it, more than the entire 20th century. Me. I'm grateful to the Supreme Court for stepping in and solving this very, very big and complex problem, and they've made it very simple. I want to thank Justice Barrett, who wrote the opinion brilliantly, as well as Chief Justice Roberts, and Justices Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Thomas. Great people. Thanks for this decision.
No, it gives way more power to the executive. He's basically saying you need to front the money and lawyers to challenge illegal orders. Wait long enough for it to reach the Supreme Court. No, that's what I'm saying. No, I know. It gives tremendous power to the executive. It makes it infinitely harder to fight back against. And also, it adds a timeline on this that otherwise would be much faster, while simultaneously removing the power of injunction from lower courts and giving the only power to the Supreme Court, which once again is, at least in our lifetimes, most likely going to continue being slanted in a right-wing supermajority. So a lot of things would have to go. A lot of things would have to go super well for the Democrats. The Democrats would have to dramatically change their. The Democrats would have to dramatically change their outlook. They would have to fight fairly hard to change the system, and maybe even like add new Supreme Court justices to the bench, like take the number up from 9 in an effort to somehow change the ideological makeup of the Supreme Court. Like, none of those things are going to happen, especially with this party that we have in our hands.
And thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation.
That's literally wrong. That is what it is. Like, that's what it is. That's why it's birthright. You're wrong. Like, that's one attitude that people have because they want to dismantle birthright citizenship, but that hasn't held up in the courts. You know, that's not. This isn't the first time people have tried to change birthright citizenship, and the courts have upheld birthright exactly as the opposite of what he's presenting. Now, that might change in the future, depending on, again, how right-wing, how white nativist we've become. But ultimately, Donald Trump's assessment here is just incorrect.
This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case because hundreds of thousands of people are.
It's very possible that nothing has changed regarding nationwide injunctions on birthright citizenship. While the court broadly limited nationwide injunctions, it said states may be entitled to them if it's necessary for complete relief. Two of the birthright cases were brought by states who argued they needed nationwide relief because patchwork citizenship rules would be devastating when people move from state to state. If district courts agree, then the nationwide injunctions will remain in place. But even then, don't you have to file it everywhere? Like, what happens to a fucking birthright American citizen born in, let's say, California, where birthright is protected, when they go from the state of California to, let's say, the state of Texas, where in this world there isn't an injunction, and therefore your birthright citizenship is rendered useless? What happens to Social Security, which is a federal process? Like, what do you do in that situation? Do you get deported back to California? None of this makes sense. This doesn't just give tremendous power to the executive office. This also kind of bricks the entire federal system. It depends. In this hypothetical, are they white? Let's say they're not white. Also, what happens to interstate commerce? What happens to travel from one state to the next? Like, if you're not surrounded by blue states, are you simply not allowed to travel by car to a different state because you're fearful that they might just ship you to CCOT? What happens to a fucking truck driver who was born in one of these birthright states but is not protected now because there are some states where you are now considered an illegal citizen? Do you understand? Do you understand how stupid this is? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Just off of the birthright citizenship thing that we're talking about, okay? Just off of birthright citizenship, constitutionally protected.
Pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people. We have so many of them. I have a whole list. I'm not going to bore you, and I'm going to have Pam get up and say a few words, but there's really, she can talk as long as she wants because this is a very important decision. This is a decision that covers a tremendous amount of territory. But I want to just thank, again, the Supreme Court for this ruling. It's a giant. It's a giant. And they should be very proud, and our country should be very proud of the Supreme Court today.
Truck driver argument isn't the best. Truck drivers unanimously dislike immigrants. Are you fucking stupid? In this conversation, the person is not an immigrant, dumbass. The person is an American-born, formerly recognized by every state American citizen. This calls into question whether they are still recognized as an American citizen in every single American state. If you destroy birthright citizenship, and not directly destroy birthright citizenship, but try to tackle birthright citizenship by executive order, and then contest the power that the lower courts have in issuing an injunction, a nationwide injunction, and unless you can like issue a injunction in every single fucking court, or have the Supreme Court directly issue a decision on the main problem in and of itself, then you create this like weird patchwork where you have a not so united states of America, a balkanized America with different legal systems and different forms of citizenship. Like it literally takes us out of even like a European Union style structure. It's like worse than that.
Today, and with that, I'd like you to listen to the words of Pam Bondi. She's an incredible attorney general. We're very proud of her. And as you know, Todd Blanche is with us, and we have so many others that worked on this case.
Does that mean you will be illegal? No, because I'm an American citizen right now. Unless they denaturalize all people that were previously also recipients of birthright citizenship, then no. Which they might. Who fucking knows? I don't know. Sky's the limit, I guess. You know?
And other cases. And I think they're doing a great job.
Probably
Pam,
not,
please
though.
say a few words.
Thank you, President Trump. Thank you for fighting for all Americans. Americans are finally getting what they voted for. No longer will we have rogue judges striking down President Trump's policies across the entire nation. No longer. Today, in the 6-3 opinion, Justice Barrett correctly holds that the district court lacks authority to enter nationwide or universal injunctions. These lawless injunctions gave relief to everyone in the world instead of the parties before the court. As the Supreme Court held today, they turned district courts into the imperial judiciary. Active liberal judges have used these injunctions.
Like, the reason why this exists, in theory, is so that the lower courts could expeditiously protect citizens and not create this legal limbo, right? Not create a structure where people are left unprotected, where people have to issue, where people have to get together, figure out what kind of harm that might come about, illegal and unconstitutional decisions that the executive orders are creating to create a class action lawsuit and then try to go to every fucking court in the state, in the nation, and protect themselves that way, with the hopes that like all of those court cases will protect them at the end of this long, convoluted, and expensive process. I don't understand what this makes America look like, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know what America looks like going forward. I don't know what the American legal system looks like going forward. Like, we're just basically hoping that the administration that has routinely done illegal things and routinely overstepped the amount of power that the executive office is supposed to have, that is fully abiding by this theory that the executive office is supposed to be like a fucking monarchy. We have to operate under the expectation that they're not going to overstep when this issue in and of itself is a matter of them already overstepping and doing something that is illegal and unconstitutional. So the only thing that will hold this country together is, I guess, a hope and a dream that the Trump administration won't actually violate pre-existing laws. A reminder, a random Fifth Circuit Texas judge, age 89, blocked all of these nationally under Biden, banned non-compete agreements, student debt forgiveness, cracking down on payday lenders. Supreme Court, then, it's fine. Just so everyone remembers how corrupt this court is. Yeah, no, 100%. That's why I'm saying this is terrifying, because you only make this decision if you think that either A, the Democrats will never come back into power because there might not be another election ever again, or when they do come back into power, they're not going to fucking do this. They're not going to do anything like this. They're not going to use the additional power that they have to change, I don't know, to help the working poor somehow.
To block virtually all of President Trump's policies. To put this in perspective, there are 94 federal judicial districts. 5 of those districts throughout this country held 35 of the nationwide injunctions. Think about that. 94 districts. And 35 out of the 40 opinions with nationwide injunctions came from 5 liberal districts in this country. No longer. No longer. These injunctions have blocked our policies from tariffs to military readiness to immigration to foreign affairs, fraud, abuse, and many other issues. The judges have tried to seize the executive branch's power.
Like, this is literally how it works. This is how the courts work. There are obviously red districts with red judges. That's why people do judge shopping. That's why people go to different districts. This is how it's always worked. When a Democrat's in charge, when a Democrat's in power, and they make national decisions such as this one, you have Republican districts with Republican judges who fucking issue injunctions to stop it. And when Trump is in charge, you have liberal judges in Democratic districts that stop that as well. It's this weird balancing act. Okay? Trump is just tossing that aside. He's just like, nah, no more of this. Which is basically supposed to shred the power the lower courts have. And you only do that if you have an idea that, like, you aren't going to lose your grip on power. Here's Lolo's proposal to get you to better understand, like, how much power the Democrats would have. Invoke the Defense Production Act to take public control of key supply chains, food, energy, water, pharma. Seize patent rights under Bayh-Dole Act and begin public production of insulin, PrEP, naloxone, and other essential meds. Declare vacancy and land hoarding as national emergencies. Prepare to tax or seize vacant units. Declare a national rent emergency and use federal emergency powers to suspend rent collection in federally funded housing and issue a moratorium on evictions using DOJ enforcement authority. Create a task force to determine targets for eminent domain, which will include vacant housing held by REITs, private equity, and landlords with over 100 units in major American cities. Buildings sitting empty, luxury condos, warehouses, or office buildings sustainable for adaptive reuse. Deschedule cannabis, psilocybin, and other Schedule 1 drugs via DOJ/DEA directive. Cancel all federal student debt via Higher Education Act 432A authority. Pardon all federal marijuana, sex work, and nonviolent drug offenders. Begin process to commute all remaining federal death row sentences. Order DOJ to stop all cooperation with local law enforcement for ICE raids, drug busts, and protests. Mass parole in place for all undocumented people using INA 212D5. End all ICE enforcement by memo. Dismantle agency via attrition. Appoint openly communist lawyers and labor organizers to head agencies and revive militant enforcement. Suspend all weapons sales and military aid to Israel and Saudi Arabia. REIT's real estate investment trusts. Like, this is technically something that a competent and ideologically minded Democratic rulership would be able to do if they were to seize power. And then one of the hurdles in its place, obviously, would be this lower court injunction that would stop this process dead in its tracks, as it did, as Paul McLeod is pointing to here. Basically, everything Biden tried to do, ban non-compete agreements, student debt forgiveness, cracking down on payday lenders, etc., was immediately blocked by nationwide injunctions from the Fifth Circuit. Next then president may have just been unshackled. That is, if there is a fucking next Democratic president. But I guess also they left this in there as well. The Supreme Court ruled nationwide injunctions are bad unless they're used to block the administrative state. Nothing we say today resolves the distinct questions on whether Administrative Procedure Act authorizes federal courts to vacate federal agency action, authorizing the courts to hold unlawful and set aside agency action.